say,
no, I agree.
we're not going to play it that way.
Right. No, I agree.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the March 1st, 2023 meeting of the Atlanta City Council Transportation Committee. Welcome you all to City Hall. I am joined by my far left by Council President Shipman, who's not on the committee, but is more than welcome to be here and be a participant. I just want to be clear from a voting perspective who are voting members of the committee. Councilmember Wan, Councilmember Norwood, and to my right, Councilmember Amos. Our first item is adoption of the agenda. I will propose to keep the agenda as it is. However, I do want to note we have 3 presentations today, MARTA, ARC, and a presentation on SP Plus, which is our on-street parking management system. I'd like to have the ATL DOT Commissioner make brief remarks before the MARTA report. But with that addition, I will move to approve the agenda. Second by Juan. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. The agenda has been adopted.
Terrific. All right. We've been joined by my colleague, Councilmember Marcy Collier Overstreet. Our next item is to approve the minutes. I will move to do so. Second by Juan. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. The minutes have been approved.
All right. Section E, public comments. We have 5 folks signed up today. Rachel Allred, you're up first. Good morning.
Rachel Allred, King Arnold Street, Hateville, Georgia, District 12. With regards to the workforce and the integrity and ethics in the workforce, I urge that you communicate with the All-in-One Parking Security Division. Back in the day, I was kind of like that good trouble in the workforce, head case, hoodlum, rascal, whatever you call it. I used to go from job to job like every 6 months. So as soon as something would go wrong in a company that I completely disagreed with, I was gone. Morally speaking and ethically speaking. I've been at All-in-One for like a year and a half or something, so that says something, because I would just hop around from job to job if, managers steal from their employees, integrity, stuff like that. But then I go to All-in-One and everyone's like, no ethic, moral, commandment problem type deal, So I appreciate that, and they work with you, and just very nice. I say this because MARTA needs a full investigation. MARTA needs a full investigation. On the flip side of that, do not forget that in Performance Management 101, the first thing they teach you is that the employees are your greatest resource. That's what they teach you in performance management. Employees are your greatest resource. So not the customers, but the employees' lives, priorities. Always give them their flowers first. Viewing them as a weakness, that would only reflect the values and leadership of the management. I say this because I'm very grateful for my MARTA drivers. And I know that the MARTA drivers would like to be included in that full investigation process. I've been having conversations, when I'm getting stuck at the East Point train station. Thank God I got one of those 30-day consecutive things, because then I just hop right on the 95. I was like, girl, blah, blah, blah. She goes, oh, listen, I try to get the interviewing process, da 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 da, the HR, et cetera, et cetera. The further you go into MARTA, the more breakdowns you're gonna see. So I just suggest a full investigation on how their business structure is set up. And then so I'm requesting a full investigation on the business structure of MARTA and a plan of action with the timeline on how that investigator plans to fix the mess ups immediately. Yeah, and just don't forget that when you go into these investigations, your employees are your greatest resource. Yeah, nailed it. Thank you.
Thank you. Been joined by my colleague, Councilmember Keisha Sean Waits. Our next speaker is DeJuan Robinson. Mr. Chris Brown has yielded his time to Mr. Robinson, so Mr. Robinson will have 6 minutes.
Good morning, Council. I want to speak on the issue we're having with MARTA. Mr. Faroki, Mr. Warren, Mr. Shipman, there's about 3,000, 25 to 3,000 riders between Camerton Road and Cleveland Avenue, which is predominantly black riders. And it's my understanding from my research, there's almost 900 riders in North Druid Hills area. MARTA came to Atlanta during the Maynard Jackson administration time. MARTA has been paid handsomely over the years to provide a service to the inner city, which is mainly the black riders. We cannot allow MARTA to play this game and to disrespect the black community once again. MARTA came to Atlanta on the backs of black folks. And we're just going to get them a pass and just let them do whatever they want to do in this city? No, we can't do that. This is Transportation Committee. Mr. Faroki, I'm not sure if you're aware of MARTA history, but if you're not, then we need to do some research, Mr. Warren, Mr. Shipman. I know blacks in your district may not ride MARTA, but where I'm from, on the west side of Atlanta, southwest Atlanta, and on the south side, people depend on MARTA transportation, and they need to do better. They have provided a service that they have been paid handsomely from the federal government in the city and the county and the state all these years. What have MARTA given back to Atlanta? Maybe you don't care, I do. There was a time that I used to have to catch MARTA. And I just think that there's a lot of people that work for MARTA now, they used to work for the city, they may be advocating on their behalf, but we have to look at the facts and the data. We cannot allow them to pull away from Camerton Road, Cleveland Ave, or any other black area, push them aside, and offer transportation over the North Druid Hills, which mainly probably may be white. We can't do that, man. We cannot allow that. And I just urge you guys to please look into that, because once again, we cannot allow MARTA to just continue to do what they want to do, how they want to do it, if they want to do it. That's what's been going on for all these years. But now we're at this point where it feels like MARTA has control of the city. And they can just do what they want to do. Nobody's above approach. Not one person is bigger than Atlanta. Atlanta is the culture. The mayor is not bigger. Council is not bigger. You guys are elected by the people to do right by the people. And MARTA has to be held accountable. Not one person in this city is bigger than this city. I don't care who it is. You know what I'm saying? Who come up here and pretend they are. Not one person. I'm not over. I had 6 minutes. Okay. Yeah. Not one person in the city of Atlanta is bigger than the city. Not one entity. And we need to understand that. MARTA is in the public service business. They have done a poor job over the years providing true public service to the people. During COVID, they cut their routes off from most blacks. But nobody was able to come down here and voice that because we were closed for COVID. They haven't fixed their bathroom for years, but they got the money for it. I mean, they hiring people over here that wasn't even coming to work over here. Probably on their last leg, and they're over at MARTA making decisions, but couldn't make ethical decisions over here. But now you're over at MARTA making decisions on the lives of people that take public transportation every day. If you've never taken public transportation every day, or your mother, your father, whomever you grew up with, you should not be giving decisions on those who take public transportation if you've never been in their shoes. And it's okay if you've been fortunate you never had to, but you need to be humble enough to understand that you cannot relate. And you should not be making life-altering decision on people who wake up every day depending on public transportation from MARTA. I guarantee you those who live in Campbellton Road, Cleveland Avenue, all the way down there, depend on that MARTA every day. They don't have a voice. They depend on their councilman. They depend on their at-large councilman. They depend on their president to make those decisions. They depend on Ms. Overstreet to make those decisions. And we cannot just allow MARTA to just do what they want to do. And I urge you, I don't want to keep sitting up here being pretty, but I just urge you to just heed those words and just take in consideration that most of those people not only voted for you, but those people live for public transportation. That's all they have. Living paycheck to paycheck, they can't get a car, they can't pay car insurance, so they live for fair transportation from MARTA. And MARTA have failed the black community for almost 40, 50 years. Yes, they provided service for all these years, but they have failed us to step up and be that elite transit that you guys have paid them for. You sit up here and listen to presentations all the time, but ask them to show the infrastructure or the bathrooms that they have renovated over the years. You know what I'm saying? They spent more money in providing police protection at the MARTA station, which we needed, but what about the infrastructure inside there for the little old lady that may have to tinkle in between rides and have to go to the bathroom? It's filthy and disgusting. So thank you.
Nathan Clubb, followed by Wanda Davila. Nathan Clubb is first. Sorry. Mr. Clubb is first, and then you're up next. Yeah.
On deck. I'm Nathan Clubb. I live in Ormwood Park. I was a past president of the South Atlantis Neighborhood Development Neighborhood Association, co-founded the Southmoreland Avenue Working Group. Been deeply invested in transportation for a very long time. I'm also on the board of Beltline Rail now. The statements I'm going to make today represent myself, not any organization that I've been affiliated with. And I just really want to urge us, because we got MARTA here with us today, and we're going to be doing a lot of talk about the more MARTA projects and potentially deprioritizing some projects, prioritizing projects we think we can get done more quickly. And I think it's important that we note that we move very quickly and we move forward with all these projects, both for fiscal, financial reasons, but also to build and rebuild trust with Atlanta voters, both so they know that MARTA and the city can actually build and expand transit, which is incredibly important as we go forward. Some folks that talk about just kind of moving around money quickly or changing projects up. Well, these certain projects are designed to be built soon. They're designed to be built today. If we start changing modes, if we start trying to switch money and go to projects that aren't currently ready to be built today, we're going to drastically increase project costs. And the more we increase these project costs, the more that we allow inflation to eat away because we delay building, the less total transit we're going to be able to build out for our communities. I think that is just very unfortunate. There's also folks who bring up some unproven technologies. They talk about microtransit and other things like that. Sound Transit, which is Seattle's transit operator, Seattle and King County, who I think we should all love very much because their failures in the past is kind of what gave us MARTA today when we got all their money to build out our own heavy rail system. But they did a study as recently as last year looking at these other forms, other modes of transit. And they found out the only feasible ones going forward are light rail streetcar, bus rapid transit, as well as buses. So I think we need to stick to the proven technologies and move forward as quickly as possible. When it comes to the streetcar east extension, which we've had a lot of conversations about here recently, I think it's important that we move forward as quickly as possible before that project gets to be even more expensive, that we ensure that project's done in a manner that is there we go, it's back on again. Including working with residents and businesses so it'll be as least disruptive as possible, because that's what it's going to take to build goodwill in order to be able to build out rail, either streetcar extension west or rail along the Beltline on the south side in the future. That we look at doing things like actually opening up Irwin Street to transit, to pedestrians, to cyclists, so that way we can actually have a more multimodal city, a more sustainable city, a more equitable city. And I see this extension onto the Beltline as a proof of concept, not necessarily as a conclusion, but as beginning of rail across the entire corridor, connecting to communities down, going through Antonio Lewis's district on the south and southwest side. I mean, these are districts that have heavy rail ridership, and we need to do all we can to build this out as quickly as we can. I know I'm running out of time here today, but I just would ask that we delivered priority projects on time, that we create accountability regarding why the original more moderate plans were off in terms of budgetary reasons, and that we rebuild trust. And then the committee can play a big role in either of these things because you all have legislative powers.
Thank you, Mr. Clubb.
So thank you very much for your time.
Ms. Devia.
Hi, my name is Wanda Davila, and of course I'm nervous. I don't do this for a living, but I just came to put a face to the people who would be affected by the rail car extension. This is a real heartache, especially for our part of the neighborhood. We've been through a lot, the pandemic, and then all of the crime and craziness that happened in our part of the neighborhood, and now we're having to deal with the uncertainty of what's going to come through this. I live on the corner of Jackson and Edgewood, and I also own a business there. So my worry is not only, oh, am I going to get some money in the bank as this project's going through, but also our quality of life. It's going to be 2 to 3 years of a lot of noise outside of our window. So I just came here to please, almost beg, just consider other options, because we do live in this neighborhood due to the availability of public transit, and we believe in it. We think that the city should have more of it, but it should not come in a shiny little car that looks good for the city and just leaves a path of destruction along the way. That already happened with what part of the neighborhood, and I hope people have not forgotten, because that part of the neighborhood is still struggling to this day. And before that, of course, we had the freeway that was done in the benefit of evolution and whatever that is called. I don't know, and some people that have the fancy words for that, we're still struggling. So I hope that the city considers us not only as a fancy little thing of, it's a historic neighborhood, it looks great for us, people come visit. There are people actually living and making their lives there. They're owning businesses and taking a risk every day. And every day is a new story, because yes, this is a city that's in evolution, but I hope that we can see some solutions to these uncertainties. One of the things that we are asking, if it does move forward, are there any studies? We haven't seen any studies. We haven't been outreached. Any of the residents, any of the nonprofits in the neighborhood. We had a town hall last week, and I mean, it just broke my heart to hear that one of the reasons for this project to move forward is to not give the money back. Yet, these are real lives that are going to be impacted. No matter if it's $2 or $220 million, that is our lives. That's going to be uprooted. So please just reach out to the neighborhoods impacted by this. Just give us the information that we need just to make better decisions, because there are other technologies out there. This is not a no. Like Mr. Faruqi said at our meeting, it's not a no. It's just that we want to have other options and solutions so that we can ensure our legacy and our generational wealth, as it's often talked about in this city. Thank you.
Thank you for everyone who took the time to make public comment today. Before we move on to presentation, I want to note we're joined by committee member, Councilmember Antonio Lewis, as well as Councilmember Matt Westmoreland. So we have a full committee attendance today, as well as Council President Chipman and Councilmember Westmoreland, who are welcome to be full participants, aside from voting on the committee. My first request is that we hear from ATL DOT Commissioner Cabanis before we turn to MARTA's report. And the briefer, the better, Mr. Cabanis. Yeah.
I figure that's a reference to my long-windedness.
No. This is true for everyone who comes up here.
Yeah. No, that would be my first statement, that I don't want to prolong this committee meeting because I know we have a lot of business. I basically ask that I have an opportunity to come before this committee and extend ATL DOT's continued commitment to the people of Atlanta. There are a number of activities and correspondence that we're working on a daily basis, but I just wanted you to know Atlanta DOT is here to commit to the citizens of this city. You'll hear today, obviously, presentation from MARTA, ARC, and our group, Atlanta DOT, and the SP Plus parking program. So our Moving Atlanta Forward program and past capital investments that are yet to be delivered. Councilmember Juan, I will not use the legacy word, but you'll find a theme around equity and investment related to the direction the city's going. So as you're listening to the MARTA presentation, as you're listening to ARC's presentation, as you listen to the parking presentation, you'll see that our commitment to redoing sidewalks, pavement improvements, it's all about connecting communities, connecting our citizens, and making sure that those investments go back into the community. So first presentation with MARTA, you'll be presented. We've had conversations around going back out to the community. So there's a draft presentation of the More MARTA program, a draft list of projects. And we want to bring that to you. We want to make sure that that gets back out to the community. We're doing ride-alongs and working with MARTA to make sure that everything's being considered. The SP Plus program will be a thoughtful parking program moving forward. So just wanted to put that in front of this committee, and thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate it. So we'll now move to, well, first I want to note at the far end of the dais, to my left, we've been joined by Councilmember Jason Dozier. We'll now turn to MARTA for your quarterly report. Mr. Greenwood, the floor is yours. My request is 15 minutes tops presentation so we can get into conversation with the committee.
All right, good morning, everyone. I'm Collie Greenwood, General Manager and CEO of MARTA, and we're pleased to be here with this quarterly one briefing. I want to acknowledge also our MARTA board members for the City of Atlanta, Rod Mullis, Jennifer Ide, and Jacob Zagabi, and they are with us remotely. And as is typical, we're going to go through the agenda. A few twists on this agenda. You'll find that we're going to spend more time talking about financials and the More MARTA resequencing. We'll spend a little bit of time of project updates and then share some additional good news. So when it comes to financials and the More MARTA resequencing, just wanted to remind everyone of how MARTA funding works. So this, really, it's a conceptual diagram that really talks about the core penny. So that is the penny that we approved, that was approved by Fulton, DeKalb, and the City of Atlanta voters in 1971, and of course by the Clayton voters in 2014. You can see the core penny sales tax revenue is split pretty evenly between the three legacy jurisdictions. The revenue from the core penny is still split roughly 50-50 between operating and the capital state of good repair. And of course, when Clayton joined in 2014, we all agreed that half the Clayton core penny would be put in escrow to fund high-capacity transit projects in Clayton County. But what's salient here by my putting this chart up is the fact that the More MARTA additional half penny that was approved in 2016 is not reflected in this chart, nor is it part of the spending equation. Before we get into the resequencing, I think it's important that we talk about one major area, and this is the enhanced bus service. This is a theme that we've been talking about in the past and one that's going to continue. I want to jump to the end by telling you that MARTA continues to work with the mayor's office to find the optimal level of enhanced bus service through the More MARTA program. But I want to just say that not only was the project list adopted by voters when we started, but the first wave of the enhanced bus service was implemented immediately when More MARTA was enacted. So, and then it was enhanced several times over 2017 and 2018. And the graphic on the left is really just a pictograph, a lift, if you will, from back in 2017, 2018. And it was a page of frequently asked questions that was used during the public outreach that was undertaken at this time, just to summarize the service. So you can read on the chart that the things that we were boasting about collectively, City of Atlanta and MARTA, boasting about when we went out to the public that this More MARTA enhanced bus service would do. We made these choices together. These choices, these decisions, the communications were made in concert between the two teams, the City of Atlanta and MARTA. And as I said, we are in conversation with the mayor's office now to optimize this number. A little bit more on the enhanced bus service. You can see the chart on the right talks about, in graphic form, where the service was added. So the dark green indicates new routes and the light green indicates other routes with service increases, whether that's span of service or improved headways. these were all the things that were going out to the community. Now, in 2018 and 2019, MARTA and the city discussed reducing the More MARTA bus service levels. But at the time, the city requested that the bus network redesign, which is intended to address concerns about levels of bus service under the More MARTA program, they offered or asked that we launch into that program so that we could get the efficiencies and the optimizations required inside of the city of Atlanta as well. Now, that project was underway, you may recall, and then COVID-19 hit in 2020. MARTA did make some initial reductions and then implemented the Essential Service Plan. And that was the plan where we reduced the footprint of MARTA service so that we could better serve those high importance areas when it came to the COVID-19 pandemic. So generally, the expenditure and service was reduced during that time, as you can see in the actual expenditures chart on the left. As I said, MARTA will reinitiate the bus network redesign this year with the goal of implementing the bus network redesign in 2024. All right, so how did we get here? This is the process that we followed to get to the resequenced More MARTA Atlanta plan. So I just want to talk about the fact that we arrived in 2019, and you'll see this 2019 sequencing plan on the next slide. But after the 2016 referendum passed, MARTA immediately got to work on extensive public engagement. The input effort to cull down this list of 70 projects, and if you'll recall, there were 70 projects initially identified, and that was going to cost about $12 billion. We recognized that all we had to spend was $2.5 billion on that 40-year tax. So of course, we had to get to work in culling that number down. Extensive public engagement to hear what the public had to say in terms of what projects were most important to them. And after a year of public engagement and millions of dollars, the following 4 guiding principles rose to the top based on significant public engagement. And as today's resequencing is simply a prioritization of those projects, they're fully in alignment with the program's guiding principles as set by the public. So I'll remind you that they were increased mobility for workers to and from major job centers, equitable investment inside of the city, layered and integrated with existing transit network, and aligned with the city's vision. In 2017, the IGA established a joint prioritization leadership group, the JPLG, and a stakeholder advisory committee, the SAC, and a technical advisory committee, the TAC. These are all internal groups made up of MARTA and the City of Atlanta, and we took these projects into a sequencing and implementation plan at that time. We proposed that to the MARTA board of directors, and they approved it in 2019, and that was incorporated into the new IGA of 2020. So that's just a bit of background in terms of how we got to where we are. And where we are is this 2019 sequencing plan. It was incorporated in the 2020 IGA, as I said, between MARTA and the City of Atlanta. And MARTA has been advancing this since its adoption, right? So there are 17 or 18, depending on how you count them, projects over there, and MARTA, ever since inception, has been moving across the board trying to advance all these projects. The IGA contemplates that changes will be needed over the life of the program and recommends revisiting the sequencing plan every 5 years or sooner if needed, based on changing conditions. The Dickens administration has expressed a real interest in focusing on a smaller set of projects to get things done, projects that can be delivered in the near term. The idea being stop spending a little bit of money across a whole bunch of projects and start spending a lot of money on a more focused set of projects, those that can be completed by 2028 or sooner. So I'm going to share with you now the proposed revision to the sequencing plan, which, following the process laid out in the IGA, we expect to take to the MARTA board sometime in April amidst a round of public information sessions to explain and provide opportunities for questions and answers. So here's the list. You'll see that we haven't removed any projects. So I'll go back, if we were to count them up and take a real hard look at what projects are on the side, you'll see on this next chart, every project is still represented there. We've divided them into 2 tiers. There's color coding there that tells you that, in the case of Summer Hill, we're already in construction. The color coding also tells you that those in yellow are in the final design stage, while the blue is conceptual design, and then in green, implemented. We've already talked about the enhanced bus service. But these are the focused 9 projects that have, if you will, garnered our attention because of the ability to have them completed by 2028. In Tier 2, you'll see future projects. None of them are dropped, but they will be better addressed in a more granular form later in the process after we've had a time to really complete and ostensibly complete Phase 1. So the big question was, can we afford it? And we've talked at length about HDR's financial model and the fact that they were working on it, and we were going to wait until they were finished before we made any claims about the affordability of Phase 1 or Phase 2 thereafter. And the bottom line is, yes, here are the 9 projects listed out here in the financial model. This is what HDR has come up with for us. And it helps us to analyze and forecast the timing of funding needs for the More MARTA program. This customized model takes into consideration many factors and assumptions related to the sources and uses of the dollars, including project cost estimates, schedules, revenues, and state and federal funding. On the screen is the model output when run for the 9 projects that I showed you earlier, and the snapshot, this is important, the snapshot is for the next 10 years, remembering that the More MARTA sales tax continues on and is extended along with the core penny. Both currently are authorized through 2057. Escalation rates are built into the project budgets, and depending on the timing of the projects, represent typical assumptions of about 2 to 6% applied annually to project cost. So the model also states approximately 57% of the revenues from the tax are allocated to capital projects, with 43% allocated to support the enhanced bus services going forward. This infers already a shift in the revised level of service after the bus network redesign recommendations are implemented for more efficient bus service. Also on the revenue side, you'll see the second line under the revenues shows both capital sales tax and operating sales tax. As new projects are brought online, we need to account for the operations and maintenance of each project. So therefore, you'll see in FY26, there's a sales tax money allocated to operating and maintaining systems like Summerhill BRT, Cleveland Avenue ART, and Metropolitan Parkway ART. So in this current model, we're assuming that bonding will also be initiated in FY24. We've built into the model the debt ratio requirements as set by the MARTA board policy. So as the first 9 projects are delivered in between 2025 and 2028 and closed out, MARTA and the City of Atlanta can then undertake to another phasing exercise for Tier 2. Based on our forecast, the program will be ready to fund the next group of projects starting in 2035. So we're in good shape regardless of any premature conjecture that we've been discussing in the past. We're operating on the facts, and the fact is that MARTA's fiscal landscape means that we're solid peers for the City of Atlanta to partner with. And while we're on the topic, that's not just my opinion. There's some top international credit rating agencies that you may have heard recently in the last couple of weeks, if we can get the slide back up, that bond credit rating agencies like Kroll, Kroll, Standard & Poor's, provided objective, independent analyses of our fiscal health and have returned as recently as 2 weeks ago saying that MARTA has earned a perfect credit rating. This is not easy to do. Very few transit agencies in the country have done that, and this is actually the first time in MARTA's history. So we're very, very proud of that standing, and what it means is that we'll be able to reduce our borrowing costs to the benefit of the program. Our financial team estimates that we can expect savings in the range of $20 million to $25 million on $1 billion of bonds over 30 years. So it's a benefit for City of Atlanta, it's a benefit for More MARTA programming, it's actually a benefit for the entire region. In terms of the More MARTA capital expenditures, we were recently asked about that spend, and so this is an analysis of the total spend to date through January 2023. And as you can see, as the projects progress through their project life cycle, we're separating costs beyond planning to include design, right-of-way acquisition, and utilities. In terms of project updates, I'll just very quickly give you an update on some of these. Summerhill, this is good news. We're finally into the construction phase. Shovels are in the ground and utility work is ongoing in advance of our construction contract, which was approved by the MARTA committee meeting last week. This is our first More MARTA program to actually move into the construction phase, so it's a milestone that we can all celebrate. We're also moving into final design on several projects. So there's the Bankhead project, moving from planning to final design. We've completed the 30%. We're preparing a procurement for final design. Transitioning to final design also with Cleveland ART and Metropolitan Parkway ART, almost to 90% designs complete. While these are two different projects, we'll combine both of them in a single procurement to reduce overhead costs. But anyway, both projects are nearing 90%, and we plan to get this procurement on the street later this year. Streetcar East, this project is moving forward. It's now making the transition to the start of the final design as we're in the process of procuring a designer, and MARTA continues to meet with stakeholders to discuss and address concerns where possible as the project moves forward. And 5 points. We continue to work with the City of Atlanta, our own bus and rail operations group, and downtown stakeholders to settle on a concept that serves as a multimodal and community neighborhood amenity. We're nearly complete with the recommendation of the final concept to ensure anticipated delivery in time for the World Cup in 2026. It's the heart of our rail system. The refreshed 5-point station will help support the success of all the development and redevelopment that is happening in downtown. When it comes to corridor projects, we're in the planning phase with the Campbellton Community Investment Corridor and with Clifton Corridor. So on Campbellton, the team's working through how the alignment will connect at Oakland City Station and best serve planned development at Fort Mac. MARTA plans to also move forward with BRT on Clifton Corridor almost exclusively in a dedicated right-of-way. The next step is that staff will make an alignment recommendation of either Avondale or Avondale and Decatur to the MARTA Board of Directors, and following that, the project will move to 30% design milestone. And finally, in terms of additional good news, just to report out on some of the concepts that we always come to committee with, and it's good to see that a continued year-over-year improvement on our ridership as we make our way back to pre-pandemic levels. Of course, we are still struggling with, although we have our full workforce back by and large in the operating ranks, we are struggling with absenteeism and putting programs in place to get a better handle on that. Bus shelters and amenities, basically for FY22, 46 of them were installed with 4 more remaining under construction. Construction is not more than a 4-week process, so their completion is imminent. And with FY23, you can see the status there, 32 in design, 14 in permitting, and 4 already under construction. Just an update on the streetcar returning to service. The first streetcar with new wheels began testing on the track yesterday, and if all goes well, will be in service by tomorrow, March 2nd. The second vehicle is expected to return to service within a couple of weeks, and service will continue to be supplemented with those shuttles until all of our streetcars have returned. But the good news is that we're able to resume streetcar service with the streetcar vehicle about a month earlier than we had anticipated. And that concludes my presentation. Ready to take your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Greenwood. Excuse me. I will start with a few questions. I'm sure my colleagues have questions as well. My questions are in 3 buckets. 1 around bus service, 2 around the More MARTA refined project list and the funding schedule for it, and then briefly on 5-point station. On the bus service, you have a slide in here that indicates that as of fiscal year 2022, $395 million in More MARTA revenue has been collected, $180.7 million of which has been spent on enhanced bus service. meaning 46% of funds collected, more MARTA funds collected to date have been spent on enhanced bus service. Do you know, and if you don't know, please provide it as soon as possible, the total bus spend from the beginning of, meaning how much MARTA has spent on bus service in the city of Atlanta from the inception of collecting more MARTA revenue till today, or through fiscal year 2022, as this number indicates?
I don't have that number with me, but we will provide ASAP.
Okay, I think what I'm getting at, and I think what is of curiosity, if not concern, to myself, maybe members of the committee, is the proportion of the total bus spend.
Right.
And what portion of that is more MARTA expenditures. Because it does not seem from, and this is not in any way to make good policy, but it doesn't seem from tests that bus service has been enhanced at a level indicative of $180 million. And I guess the follow-up question I have for you is, if you took away that $100 million investment over the last 4 or 5 years that more MARTA has funded, would bus service today look exactly the same as when the funds started to come in the door?
So without that investment, bus service today would not look the same as pre-more MARTA City of Atlanta.
How so?
We, as I said earlier, we not only did we add several routes, but we also expanded the scope of service in terms of when we start, when we finish, and the headways, if you will, or the frequency of the service was tightened up so that we got more frequent service on those identified routes.
Okay. But this during a period, pandemic potentially
Yes,
caused,
yeah.
of ridership plummeting. We're still not back at pre-pandemic ridership. I saw it was roughly, what, 3.74 million when the pandemic hit. This is bus ridership. Monthly ridership, 3.74 million. Today it's at roughly 2.6 million. So we've enhanced bus service, meaning frequency of routes,
Yep.
length of routes, some new routes. Ridership has gone down. How do you feel about that?
I would say that experience is shared across the board throughout, not just in the city of Atlanta, but throughout our service area, in fact, throughout the country. So yes, I started that bus enhancement conversation by jumping ahead and saying that we believe that more conversations required to optimize that. I just speaking on my own, I believe that there are opportunities here to be more efficient in the amount of bus service we're providing based on the number of people that are using it. I will caution myself, however, in saying that setting bus schedules has a leading effect on ridership. So if you cut too far, you will actually cause further ridership decline. So we're being careful, but we are intentional about reducing the amount of spend in the bus network in the more MARTA enhanced bus service. And I will say that, around 2019, that was the intention. We were going to go ahead and start peeling back on a lot of those routes. And the conversation at that point was, let's wait until we do it all at once. There's this 40-year bus network redesign taking place. Let's do it all at once. And we agreed with that process. MARTA agreed with that and engaged heavily in public engagement. We talked with jurisdictional partners, elected officials, land use planners, the public over better part of a year, and a lot of survey responses. So that is collated and being collected, and we're moving through that process. So when we do next year implement the bus network redesign, it will in fact have those efficiencies that you and I are talking towards, because frankly, we can do better in terms of the amount of money we're spending there.
Okay. I appreciate that. And look, my question is not an anti-bus one. We need bus service in the city. It's arguably the most efficient way to move folks around. It's cheaper than light rail. There's all sorts of opportunity with it. I think the question is, and this is not one you have to answer today, it's in many ways, a bit of a futurist conversation, is kind of where does demand exist today? Where's it going? What's the future work look like? How do people need to move around the city? Are you investing dollars in the right bus routes at the right frequency? It's not clear that we've kind of hit the sweet spot yet, and so I would expect all of us up here to continue to push y'all on that.
Yeah, that's the focus of the network redesign.
The proposed sequencing plan revision, skipping to the 9 projects that have been articulated here. So to be clear, MARTA's plan is to bond in fiscal year 2024 against future revenue, against future more MARTA revenue, to get these projects completed in the time frame articulated. So roughly in the next, 8 years.
Yeah.
Okay. What does that mean for projects that have been kicked to tier 2? So North Avenue BRT, Northside Drive BRT, Vine City Station, et cetera. Does that mean that not until 2035 will you be able to generate new revenue for these new projects?
Well, the intention is to focus on the 9 in Tier 1. As I said earlier, the idea of spreading that peanut butter too thin and trying to get a little bit done in every area was serving no one. The delay was palpable, and in this landscape of construction and design, delay is very expensive. So yeah, as I said earlier, those 9 over this 10-year tax capture are covered. The following, as we start to talk with the City of Atlanta again for Tier 2 in 2035, we will have the money there to fund Tier 2.
Starting when? In 2035?
Starting in 2035. And that's not to say that some work hasn't already been done on Tier 2 and some of those projects, but we heard loud and clear from council in terms of telling us to sort of rip the Band-Aid off and be clear with everyone in terms of what we can afford. And not just council, but the mayor's office supporting that concept. So that's where we are.
Okay. And the more MARTA tax expires when? 2057?
57, yeah.
Okay. It's too early to know how we'll all be behaving in 15 years, but I think it does beg the question, is the project list and the projects that will be completed over this next 10 years and the projects currently articulated over the next, the rest of the more MARTA tax term, is that compelling enough for the tax, right? I mean, are we delivering projects that transportation mobility demands today and in the future in a way that meets voters' expectations?
Yes, we are. And as I said earlier, we relied on those 4 basic guiding principles that the public told us were important to them. And those 9 projects do indeed do that. That was, want me to go through that?
Please go ahead.
Yeah, that was increased mobility for workers to and from job centers, equitable investment inside the city, layered and integrated with existing transit network and aligned with the city's vision.
2 more project-specific topics, then I'll turn to my colleagues. One is 5 Points transformation. You have a slide in here showing the transition to final design. I know I'm joined by at least one of my colleagues, Councilmember Dozier, who represents the 5 Point station. I represent a sliver of it at the north edge of it. And I'll be honest, I'm a little bit underwhelmed by the proposal here for 2 reasons. One, it feels a little bit like a glorified bus stop rather than or bus station, rather than a center city node station worthy of Atlanta, frankly. I know you take off the top, you put in this canopy, add bus service or bus, kind of bus flow, bus parking, bus pickup. But is this really the best use of funds for 5 Points? And, what is your vision for 5 Points and why is it that way?
Let me start with, yes, it is the best use of funds. My vision for 5 Points, and we've shared broadly, is that it's a modernized center hub. It is a, it's going to inspire a lot of private investment in the area. It's going to transform that space, and let's be honest, we are a bus company, we're a transit company, and it is the center of our transit company. So I won't apologize for appearing like a transit hub. That's what it's meant to be, and transit service is going to have to take priority over the aesthetics some other design. But given that its functionality is what we need to operate a transit service, and given that the modern, clean lines and open spaces and the accommodation of the opportunity to program more space in the downtown core, I believe that's going to transform the center of downtown.
I appreciate your optimism. It's what I think anyone at the front end of a development wants to have. I would push you and say, I think one of my concerns is, and we can take this up at a later date, they're not too late because I know decisions are imminent, is this area surrounded by increasing pedestrian-focused development, some of which has been in place for hundreds of years. Fairly Poplar, just to the north, is arguably our most kind of pedestrian-friendly grid part of our center city. You have Newport and CM Group building out pedestrian-friendly spaces just to the south and to the west. And yet, if you were to walk through this area, assuming those areas kind of come to full fruition, you kind of lose some of that center city pedestrian-friendly vibe. And I would challenge you that my complaint is not aesthetic, it's more functional and like a functional design curiosity as to, is it a pleasant experience to walk from one end of downtown to the other if you're walking past the 5 Point Station? And I'm not convinced that's the case yet. We can take that conversation up offline, but I'll just leave that there.
Okay.
And then the last thing I'll note, North Avenue BRT, which I know has been moved to Tier 2, I'm curious, it is, and this is, I represent the area, so a little bit of personal favoritism. It is a project, unlike some others on the list that will be completed sooner, for which today there exists demand. I mean, you have a destination and critical mass of people in Midtown. You have a destination and critical mass of folks around Ponce City Market, for lack of a better anchor. There is hunger for east-west connectivity across that corridor, and then beyond Midtown to Georgia Tech and the west side. I'm curious, for a project that is arguably less expensive than others on this list, why MARTA has chosen not to pursue a project for which there is current demand and lack of east-west connectivity with that BRT line.
A couple of things. One really came down to feasibility. A big part of this, the feasibility of that program was going to be the smart street design. And the Smart Street corridor hasn't materialized to the extent that we would have needed it to move forward on the project. The turnback locations were also somewhat problematic in terms of being able to turn the vehicle around. With BRT performance, if you go too far beyond the core and too deep into circuitous paths and traffic, you lose the performance of the BRT. So there's the whole idea of getting someplace quickly and reliably is lost if you can't turn around somewhere close to the major artery. And so we're having a lot of problems trying to find those turnaround spots. And then in terms of support, a project like this, of course, demands the level of support from businesses and individuals across the corridor. And notwithstanding your observations that there were a lot of folks supportive of it, we found a lack of support in some key areas. So those are the main reasons.
And what were those key areas? I can prompt you with some guesses, but I'm curious if you would disclose who those key opponents were.
What I would say is, if you and I want to, after this meeting, talk in detail about maybe how we can approach those folks and talk to them about their apprehensions, and that might be the better way to go instead of me kind of standing here publicly naming organizations and people that are against it.
Well, okay, I'm happy to have that conversation with you offline. I will suggest that given that, we can debate data, but that demand exists in that corridor, that the best public policy decision is to build out connectivity there where there is existing demand that would serve many stakeholders along the corridor. All that goes to say, thank you. I want to turn to my colleagues. For some reason on my screen, I know there's one speaker waiting. I can't see that person on my screen. Do you know who it is? I'm sorry? Yeah, I did. I went and came back. No love. Well, let me just turn to my colleagues. Do any of my colleagues have questions? Yeah. Yeah. Councilmember Overstreet, the floor is yours. Yeah. Yeah, well, yeah.
But
can pass
I'm
the
happy
sign-up
to
sheet
ask a
around.
few.
Yeah.
So thank you for delivering. And I did also have the pleasure of sitting down with your colleagues on Monday. Was it Monday? I don't know. Monday, to go over what you shared here today. And I was quite honest with them on Monday. And I'll do the same for you. I will just start at a different spot. I'll start where Councilmember Faroki left off, because that was a portion of what I spoke about on Monday. I want to know, how is it that we are choosing projects to advance along and not considering where our highest ridership is, where we've done the most work and made the most promises for the longest time? And I am speaking specifically about Campbellton Road corridor, the investment corridor. I'm noticing, you know, the demand is there, the necessity is there. Necessity means, in my case, people that are using MARTA because they have to, out of necessity. People that are using MARTA because it is their only way to get to work, is their only way to get to the grocery store, is their only way to meet their child in an emergency at school or wherever. Like, this is necessity, and we've shown this need for decades in Southwest Atlanta, especially on the Campbellton corridor. So I just want to know, why is it that Campbellton is only at, well, not even at 30% design yet, and other projects that have not shown that type of necessity and ridership are ahead of it. And, you know, it should, if we're all being super duper honest, Campbellton should be shovels in the ground like Summerhill. I'm happy for Summerhill. I'm so excited that we as a city are, you know, finally getting a more MARTA project on the way. So I'm truly happy about that, but I can't hang my hat on it and leave it there, because I still feel that we are lagging where we need it most, where we know we need to connect people to their places of business and their places of work and those type of necessities. They're not going to the game. They're not coming to the aquarium. They're going to work. And so for that reason, I am still floored that we're not past not even 30% design for Campbellton Road. After we've talked about the commitment of $300 million. I mean, that was agreed upon out loud in our council meetings and during committee. We've talked about, you know, we've talked about so much where Campbellton is concerned. I've gone on yet another ride to talk about every single intersection. And I really want to better understand the priority of Campbellton Road from MARTA.
Okay, thank you. Campbellton Road is a very high priority for MARTA. I'm grateful that you said you're happy for Summerhill, and in fairly short order, we'll hear others talking that way about Campbellton Road. We're getting there. Campbellton Road, I'll remind you, was something that we entered into, applied for CIG investment grant funding in June of last year. August? Thank you, August of last year. And we actually got it in November. So it's the first City of Atlanta More MARTA project to enter into the CIG program. So that's the priority of Campbellton Road. I've been out there myself. I've spoken with Reverend Fleming on several occasions, face to face, understanding the corridor and the needs. It is a priority for MARTA. At the same time, you know, they say a rising tide floats all boats. We're working here to get 9 rising tides in the next 5 years across Atlanta. And I think it's important that we become cheerleaders for each other's projects. And the fact that another project is doing well or advancing in no way detracts from the priority that I apply or MARTA applies to Campbellton Road. And I will say, maybe we would have been further ahead, but we did press pause, re-engage the public, talking about, when we were talking about the modal shift, so that did cost us upwards of about 6 months or so. We may have been somewhat further ahead, but it was important to go back out and get the public pulse and do more communication when the LPA was being finalized. So I'll turn it back to you.
Yeah, so, 6 months, if we were talking about 6 months, I would be fine with that. But it doesn't feel like the Campbellton Road is just 6 months behind, or 6 months behind other projects that I've not even seen proven projections or of ridership. Like, is it true that Campbellton Road has about 3,000 riders regularly, daily?
It is, I don't have the number, but it is a very heavily traveled corridor. It's a very heavily traveled corridor.
Okay, and so, we have that data. And then when you all say, we did a survey, we did a this, and we did a that, and we heard from the people, and they say they want this instead. So Campbellton Road riders, they're filling out their survey when they enter that bus every day. That's a survey. That's proven. That is better than a projection. That's proven.
I don't think I'm disagreeing with you. It's important, and we're moving on it as an important. I will say, when you look at that reprioritized sequence list, there are only 4 projects ahead of Campbellton Road. One of them's in construction. That's Summer Hill, Cleveland, Metropolitan ART, and 5 Points Transformation. Those are the only ones that are ahead of Campbellton Road.
I'm looking at, okay, so let's just say the streetcar east, okay, thank you. Let's say the streetcar east expansion. I've not even seen where your projections that you put on paper are what actually happens, whereas on Campbellton Road, you know that they're riding the bus. You know that they're using MARTA. And I've not seen the projections for a streetcar east expansion or how you captured those, yet it is already headed towards final design?
Yeah. Yes. Yes, it's a required part of the process to move a project along. So as long as we have the bandwidth to move these projects along, we will do that. And the only thing, I can promise you that we're moving as quickly as we can on Campbellton Road. I almost hear you saying that that's great, but relative to the other projects, you think it should be further ahead. The only way for me to do that is to slow down on the other projects. We don't need to do that.
So that's not true, because we can eat and chew gum at the same time. We'll walk and chew gum at the same time.
That's what we're doing.
So you don't slow down one project because you're working on another.
I agree. So we're not going to slow down on the other projects, and we'll continue to advance Campbellton as quickly as we can. That's what we're doing.
Okay, I mean, trust me when I say I understand that this is where we are today, and I asked for this. I begged for this, actually. I wanted this sequencing done. And I wanted these projects narrowed down so we could seriously see what we're getting done in the city. Right. So I understand that. I absolutely do. I just want to make sure that no one takes their eyes off of the ball.
We're not.
It is imperative that we get Campbellton done as fast as we can. It doesn't just connect people to their places of work, but it actually has the opportunity to expand where MARTA reaches other cities. Douglasville, College Park, City of South Fulton, East Point. It has tentacles, that one corridor. And, it just floors me that we just are not, not even at 30% of design.
Yeah, and the speaking points that you're raising are the points we use to enter it into CIG. We are promoters of Campbellton Road using all of those arguments. Using the high ridership, going down to DC and making sure that people understood that we're all in for this project. So I hear you, you're concerned, you don't want us to take our eye off Campbellton Road, and I assure you that's not going to happen.
So I also have another request. I want a different type of chart, because this chart just shows, actually, let's just compare it to the chart from 2019. 2019 sequencing chart was way more in depth with more information than your new chart is very vague. I see colors, yes, the colors look real nice, but from 2022 to 2028, I see 3 projects that way. I would like, and that's the conceptual design, as if Campbellton is still a concept.
Which one are you looking at?
Oh, the proposed sequencing, the
Can we get the
pages aren't
slideshow
numbered.
back up on the, and I can share
Right
that
here.
for everyone? Yeah, I just want everyone else to see it. What slide are you on, Counselor? Yeah, or if you just give me
It's not numbered, so
access.
let's. But, so what I'm asking,
Go ahead. And maybe while we're waiting, let me better explain this, the revised sequence plan. Those colors identify where the project is, what stage of the project it's in. So it's not just an aesthetic thing. It tells you whether it's in construction, final design, conceptual design, or implemented. Next, we have the bars, and the bars tell you when the project started and when the project is anticipated to complete.
I get that.
Okay. So
100%
what's
I get that.
missing?
What's missing is I want to see all of the projects have all of the colors. I want to know, because I read maps well, and I do know that we can't have a blue conceptual design for Greenbrier Transit Center and the Campbellton Road BRT, all in just a conceptual design from 2020 to 2028. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, yes.
So I would like for the colors to all be represented for every project,
Okay.
so that we're clear about what years we're talking about when.
This is it's a dashboard, so let me just finish this and then we'll see if we can get to someplace amenable. This is a dashboard, so as soon as it goes out of conceptual design, the color changes. So it really is.
Don't see it here, so that's
No.
what that's why I say for the next one, if you can provide for me.
Yeah, if you just
one
let
that
me
shows
finish,
that.
let me just finish the explanation. The duration of the project is listed there in the bar. When the project enters final design, the color will change, and so you will see, it's just an extra bit of information for anyone reading the map. What I hear you saying is perhaps we can have a gradient of colors along the bars for each project, but that would be a projection of when we think the color would change. But what we're giving you here is actual quick information.
So it is not actual, because the concept is not going to stay the concept in that conceptual design blue from 2022 to 2028, hopefully, right?
The concept will change, and when it does, so too will the color.
So, Mr. Greenwood, you're saying that what I'm asking you for is something you cannot give me?
Yeah, I'm just saying, I don't understand. Yes, correct. It's not that I can't give it to you, but you would need I don't think you understand what I'm saying. That color will change as soon as the project moves into a different phase. If you want.
So let's just go back to your sequencing for 2019, and we're really getting off of the whole purpose here, but this is the page before.
Yeah. So we can go back one. Yeah.
It seems here that you all have more detail on the chart, right?
I don't, you're saying so. It may be because there are 17 projects instead of 9, but you want to tell me
No,
what
it's-
information's missing?
I want more information on a line of color for all of the projects, other than just a
Okay.
concept for 6 years, or construction for 8 years. I want the actual graph to be more specific about what we're delivering.
What I'll do is I'll speak to you offline and make sure that we both understand what it is you're looking for.
Got it. Next question. So it was brought to my attention that people aren't really familiar with enhanced bus service compared to just regular bus service. And I do agree that $100 million spent on enhanced bus service is a lot. And I want you to give me a couple examples of what's the difference between regular and enhanced, and why during the pandemic is the enhanced bus service at $100 million with less ridership.
Yeah, because ridership, as I said earlier, it's delinked, and that's why we're having a conversation about if our ridership is at a sustained level lower than we expected it to be, then it is time to reimagine how much service we're putting out there.
So tell me the difference between enhanced bus service and
Sure.
regular bus service.
Sure.
And why is it a $100 million difference?
Yeah, see if I can find that slide while we're talking. And regular bus service is the core penny that we talked about at the beginning of the presentation. Enhanced bus service basically is, take a look at this chart here, and I don't have my glasses on, but we said we had 3 new local bus routes. We had 1 new express bus route. We had 13, and so you can read that slide, but it was 32, 64. All of those routes were affected. That was the enhancement over the regular service. And in picture form, that's what you see there. So you've got the regular routes in the gray lines. You've got the enhanced routes in green lines. Green lines being more time spent out on the route and faster service, and dark green lines being completely new routes.
So enhance here is speaking about the actual grid and not the experience or anything else is put into that. It's just the
level of service.
the level, that's it.
Yes.
And that was 100 million extra dollars out of the More MARTA.
Right.
I think that's excessive. I think that's a lot.
I mean, it's expensive, I'll give you
Yes.
that. But, I started this presentation by saying we're taking a second look at what we can do to optimize that.
Yeah. Okay, well, agreed. Let's take a second look at that. My next question is about contract awards for construction. I'm told that we can't issue contract awards unless something is fully funded. Can you explain that to me? Like, is that a state mandate?
Yeah, so in order to go out to market, MARTA has to be able to demonstrate that there's a funding plan for the project, yes.
And we are in compliance with that.
Yes.
I'm going to move on.
Okay.
Because someone asked me that, and I wanted to be sure that publicly we're stating that. So what is the public engagement process for your new list?
We drafted we have a proposed engagement plan that means we're going out various areas of the jurisdiction of the city. We're giving them much along the lines of what I was doing here, the history of the More MARTA program, where we currently stand, what the refocused list is, where each project stands, and standing ready to be accountable and answer any questions that they may have.
Okay, I'm happy to hear that, because that's important. And understanding that public engagement doesn't mean a resequencing again. It just means, let's talk about the decisions that we've made.
Absolutely.
And that's important to do. Last time I spoke with someone, they said, well, if we go back out to the public, that means that it's going to throw these projects back more. And that is not what that means. That means that you're just explaining the projects that are in queue and why they're in queue, and explaining the process of actually getting these jobs completed to the public.
Absolutely.
It doesn't mean that we're throwing
Waiting
it
for
back.
feedback and all
That's
that.
right.
We've done that.
It's not that
Right.
at this point. So just wanted to make sure that we're on the same page with that.
We are.
The fact that we do need to go back to the public to talk about this, these tiers and the details in the projects, We need to go to the public to talk about that. But that doesn't throw it behind
Right.
even further. And let me see if I have anything else. Oh, so where do we direct those that have issues or questions at this point? Because, you know, the IGA is not, the city council isn't included in that, and I don't think many people know that.
Right.
So where do we direct people that want to be a part of that public engagement or have questions about where we are with this new resequencing? Where do we direct them?
moremarta.com. We'll make sure we have an engagement posting up on, it's marta.com, and we'll have instructions there in terms of where our engagements are going to be, when, what time, and for more information, where to contact.
So that's a little vague. Is there a way we can have someone, like a team, that speaks to people that they can contact? Because if I say, just go to itsmarta.com, that's not good for, you know, average citizens. They want to feel like we're actually paying attention and we have someone working on it.
Yeah, it's not a one-way portal. We will see questions on itsmarta.com. We'll make sure that we set something up that puts them in touch with us, the individual people actually out there, but they'll have to know when and where. So that's what itsmarta.com is going to do. In terms of having an office set up for, you know, to give you a name and a phone number, we don't have that.
No, it doesn't have to be something new. It could be existing, like who's in charge of, you know, constituent services or you know, it's just needs to be something a little more specific.
Okay.
It could be a person that you already are using for these
Depending on the
public
project, yeah.
projects, but, you know, like the public engagement, but then we'll just have a specific resequencing way, you know, person that people can speak with or something like that.
Yeah, I think in this case, it'll be more than one person. It does take a
Right,
team
a
to answer
team.
to these different projects. So again, a central contact number or website or something is important, but we'll see if we can get more granular in terms of
Yeah.
something like that. We'll
Yeah,
take a look.
let's do that. Even if it's just, you know, a place where people can, you know, lodge their
Observations.
observations, questions, suggestions, even though their suggestions should be just handled in a way that explains to them what we're doing at this point, because we don't want to resequence the resequence. We're not doing that. But I just want to make sure that people have a place that they can go to talk specifically about this resequencing.
So, for example, the bus network redesign, a year-long process, lots of engagement. We direct everyone to itsmarta.com, and when you get there, it says something to the effect of, you know, MARTA 2040 bus network redesign. You click on that link, and there's lots of information, and for more information, contact this person, that person.
Got it.
That's what I'm proposing for this.
That sounds great. That's
Okay.
exactly what I'd like to see. And if you don't mind getting back to city council when that's set up so that we can have that information too, to send out.
Fantastic.
And I yield for now. Thanks.
Councilmember Lewis.
Thank you, CEO Greenwood. I also want to say thank you for the 84-page email that you sent yesterday at 2:13 p.m.
84 pages?
Yes, my staff and I, we were able to go through it all, and we got some questions today. I feel
Yours to
good about today. Particularly sitting in the room we're in, the Larry Dingle room, and understanding who Marvin Arrington was at the time and how he was the person who was a part of this whole putting together process. So I'll start with some questions gonna seem like I'm asking you as a four-year-old because I wasn't a part of this when it came forth. But I will tell you what I did is made sure that the projects in my district got done. And so Cleveland Avenue Metropolitan are a part of the first wave, and I'm happy about that. My district is actually getting taken care of. I will say thank you for making sure that District 12 was taken care of fully in this. Is the MARTA, and I know we've brought up the IGA a few times, so I want to read the two sections that are that pertain a lot of stuff what what Councilmember Overstreet just said, how do we choose this place? And so the note, passage 2.08 of the IGA, the evaluation criteria, right? So when we think about how do you choose this over this, to make sure people know. The prioritization of the program of projects supported by the MARTA sales tax will follow a program prioritization process as shown in Exhibit B. While this may be further refined by the Joint Prioritization Leadership Group, generally, prioritization will be considered according to the set of evaluation criteria, including but not limited to ridership potential. So ridership potential, first Councilmember Overstreet, the current ridership potential. The next one was accessibility, travel time, and mobility enhancements, system expansion equity. It was mentioned a few times in there. Financial leverage and connections to employment centers, not the Georgia Aquarium like you just said. So employment centers and by ridership, that's how they're supposed to choose the things that come first. So you've been correcting a lot of them. I want to make sure I read one more thing. Note section 2.12, because I know we've been spending over 50% on bus, and we're trying to figure out who is the city. I'm trying to figure out who's the City of Atlanta PMO, liaison, who actually made the question do 50% of revenue. So the section 2.12, 2.12, MARTA will conduct bus service changes in accordance with the MARTA Act. The bus service within the City of Atlanta will include expanding service levels on existing routes and enhancing service during midday, nights, and weekends. The MARTA PMO will be working collaboratively with the assigned City of Atlanta PMO liaison to develop, review, and approve the bus improvements associated with the sales tax program. So I want to know first, who's the liaison City of Atlanta PMO?
So the more MARTA PMO, that's the Project Management Office. The City of Atlanta liaison, is it John? Yeah, John? He's in the room.
And so if we can have John come up, because I got one quick question. First, who authorized 50% of the revenue to be used on enhanced bus services? Currently, I saw something that said $235 million was supposed to be spent over the entire lifetime. If in the past 4 years we spent $200 million of the money we brought in, and we're supposed to spend $235 over the entire lifetime, or am I?
Yeah, so John Saxton, Mobility Planning Assistant Director, ATL DOT, PMO Liaison for the More MARTA program. So I think your question kind of predates my time. I joined the city beginning of January last year, and I think as you're noting, the 50% kind of split between bus service as a percentage of the total revenue was something that was kind of in place in fiscal year 2017, 2018. So I really can't speak to that original decision.
So who did someone in the City of Atlanta approve for 50% of that to be, or was that MARTA who made that decision?
Yeah, I don't know that I can answer that question. That is something that predates me.
Thank you, John. Thanks. Like I said in the beginning, all of these decisions were made jointly.
Okay.
And you know,
John, I might need you one more time, John.
Councilor Lewis, I want to focus on MARTA for the time being, so let's,
yeah,
as we can, focus on MARTA.
I appreciate John coming up here
We can take that conversation offline.
setting the record straight. But yeah, it's been a joint decision all the way along. But most importantly, like I said when I started this presentation, is regardless of who was at the table in 2016, 2017, and how the decision was made, we are moving forward in a collaborative way, recognizing the inefficiency of a spend like that.
Okay, so my question is is the total amount that we're supposed to spend $235 million over buses, or what's the total amount we're expected to spend over this entire process on bus services, bus enhancements?
Do we have that number? I'll get that for you.
So we'll accept
but it is going to drop.
There's a number that I've heard, so we'll accept my number for lack of a better number until we receive another.
Sure.
All right, so $235 million over the entire program. Over the past 4 years, we spent $200 million. Are we supposed to survive our buses enhancements and upgrades, $35 million over the next what?
We'll have to check those numbers, Councilmember Lewis. That doesn't make sense.
Does anyone in here know those numbers? So I'll accept my numbers. I like my numbers then.
All right,
If
that's
I'm the
great.
only person saying numbers, I like those numbers.
I would prefer to go ahead and get proper numbers by doing some research and extrapolation and come back to you. But for the meantime, you can keep your numbers and we'll get back to you on ours.
Okay, is this MARTA's money or the City of Atlanta's money?
The More MARTA program money, the More MARTA City of Atlanta program, it's the people's money. It's allotted to MARTA through, I think it's actually through state program. So it doesn't come through City of Atlanta. It comes directly to MARTA. But I'm not going to tell you it's MARTA's money, and I would never tell you it's your money. It's for the people in the City of Atlanta.
When I say City of Atlanta, I'm speaking of the citizens. We speak for the citizens. So I'm saying citizens of the City of Atlanta money, who we are the people that actually.
Yes, yeah. Look, $1.3 billion a year, and it's not mine. It's for the jurisdictions that we serve.
Yeah. So now I know it's collaborative. In 6 years and 23 quarters of the program, MARTA has only issued 4 comprehensive quarterly financial reports. Does MARTA have comprehensive quarterly reports for the first 19 quarters of the More MARTA program?
I think in those pages that you are referencing, there are a number of reports, much beyond the number that you've cited, that have gone through to the city in various representative areas of the city. The numbers are there in the document, so it's far more than that.
Okay. MARTA has not posted any More MARTA financial reports on the website for the public. Will you commit to posting all past and future More MARTA quarterly financial reports online for the public?
So again, we have been transparent with all of that. Maybe Colleen or Carrie can speak to where it's been posted or how it's been disseminated. But yes, going forward, the very dashboard that we're able to provide with you with the total overall spend will continue to be available to the public.
Yeah, I know I spoke on the IGA a little earlier, and so my questions next are on the sequencing plan. And so they will reflect around the Clifton corridor, around the Calverton high capacity transit, and the new sequencing plan for five points roof transformation versus the infill stations that we've already talked about. And so next, the new sequencing plan speeds up the Clifton corridor project on the north side by 8 years. What is MARTA doing to speed up that delivery?
The fact that it's expedited is because MARTA's been working at it. So the fact that we've got an LPA that changes mode from rail to BRT was a significant part of that expedited time frame.
That's amazing that you were able to speed that one up by 8 years. Cleveland ART in my district has been delayed by 1 year. Metropolitan ART in my district has been delayed by 2 years. The Greenbrier Transit Center in Councilwoman Overstreet's district has been moved back by 2 years. How is it possible that projects on the south side are moved back and delivered late, but projects on the north side can be accelerated by 8 years?
It's a snapshot in time. If I accept your observations, and you know, what I really need to do is go back and test what you're saying to see if it bears out. But let's accept that for now. I can tell you that if you tell me that today and we speak again in a year in a project-rich environment, there are going to be slippages. And MARTA, like I said earlier, is committed to expediting where we can. But let's face the fact that as we get started in this, and we expect to finish between 25 and 28, there are going to be delays. And whether they're at one part of the city or another, I'm running a system here, and we're not looking at it in terms of let's make sure that we don't advance in one area until the other areas advance. We're just trying to do the best for every area that we can. So as we move forward, brace yourself. There are going to be delays, and some of them will be in areas that you may not care about as much as others, but we care about them all.
Not what I care about. I made sure I started off by reading the IGA and the evaluation criteria first, to make sure that we talked about what was put in the IGA.
Right.
And let me please go to the next one. When we talk about there, you said that you don't know if this factual, what I just said. I'm going by what you sent me. So those two questions in those years are based off what I received from you yesterday at 2:13 p.m.
That's great. So there may be interpretations. Let me just look at it before we, but for now, let's,
You
for
just
argument's
explained
sake.
These are the same two sheets
Great.
that you just explained. So
Great.
the years I'm using are stuff from you, not me.
Great.
Only number I came up with was the number no one can come up with. So I say 235 over a 50-year span, and we spent 200 million already. So we got 35 million for the
So
next.
we'll check that. And
40
so
years.
the short answer to your question is that we are advancing all projects to the best of our abilities as quickly as we can. There will be delays, and that is not, we don't purposely delay in any area versus the other.
How can we get back to sticking to passage 2.08 of the IGA to make sure? I know my project's getting done. I'm here making sure we fight for other folks, right? Because I know that they was going to make sure my projects were done before we came in here today. So I appreciate y'all for making sure I'm taken care of. But I'm making sure I fight for the other parts of the city, because Campbellton Road is a piece of my area. And I'm making sure that I'm making sure that 2.08, I just want to see 2.08 be followed if we use that criteria.
Yeah, 2.08 is being followed. And let me just, you've said it a few times, so let me clarify that we are not advancing projects because they're in your district. So it seems that you're quoting from the 2016 IGA. It doesn't exist anymore. We're using 2020 now.
Okay. All right, so did that 2.08 change? And we're talking about MARTA. A lot of these programs are actually in the first MARTA program too. So that's the one.
Peter Andrews, Chief Legal Counsel for MARTA. The 1617 IGA was only implemented for the purpose of the passage of the referendum and the initial 72 project list and how we were going to narrow it down. There's a new 2020 IGA that was adopted by the City Council and MARTA that was executed in November of 2020 by Mayor Bottoms and followed by MARTA, that now just deals with the governance of how we actually get these projects done, including the resequencing when necessary every 5 years. So you superseded and replaces the one you're looking at.
Yeah, I agree with you, but the money I'm discussing comes from the 2016 IGA, right?
So no, it doesn't.
Okay.
So the money comes from the referendum that was authorized after the vote, that passed by 79% or whatever it was.
What year?
In 2016.
I was
Right?
making sure. That's what I'm on.
No, I got you.
Terminology may be a little different because I'm a council person, not an engineer that works at MARTA. So I'm talking about that money that was approved in 2016.
Correct.
And what they're judging me on in my district is making sure that the funding from the first MARTA, actually, my projects actually get done. So I'm talking about that.
Right, so it's all the same funding.
Yep.
Okay, but the 2017 or 2016 IGA had one purpose and one purpose only, and that was to narrow down the list to something that we could actually all accomplish as partners.
Okay.
The 2020, which is in place now, so that one doesn't have any legal standing or, ability to be enforced, is the 2020 IGA that lays out how we go through to actually implement those projects and then resequencing them. And so what Mr. Greenwood was saying earlier is as we looked at the resequencing, the proposed resequencing took all 4 of those criteria into account, even though it wasn't in a contract or required. We did still go back and reference to make sure that we did not change anything we had done originally.
To make sure, your last statement is what make sure we're there. So you're saying that section 2.12 and 2.08 are no longer, they're not in the new IGA?
No, sir, because we've moved past narrowing down the 73 list down to the 18 or so list, and now moved on to implementation to try and get these projects done, as we've heard from every single council member today.
The portion that I'm speaking on in those two portions are with equity and with the way stuff is chosen. So we remove equity from the way we're choosing stuff.
No, sir.
And ridership, we remove
Okay.
ridership and equity.
So all of the projects that are on the list in the IGA, which is the first chart that you saw that's attached to the IGA, those projects took into account all 4 of those criteria. We have not removed any of those projects from the list, so all 9 projects still meet those criteria.
We on the same page. We ain't saying anything different.
Okay, if you say so.
You just told me that we're using, yeah, I agree. We just saying it differently. I just told you, you speak, the people that listen to me at home, they want to make sure that the projects that were on the list get done in District 12. They're already done. I mean, they're on the list. My goal now is prioritization. How is it that, my question was very, and hopefully you can answer that question then. Well, my question was, Cleveland ART in my district has been delayed by 1 year. Metropolitan ART in my district has been delayed by 2 years. The Greenbrier Transit Center in Councilwoman Overstreet's district has been moved back by 2 years. How is it possible that the projects on the south side are moved back and delivered late, but projects on the north side are accelerated by 8 years? That's my question.
So again, when you get into project scheduling, engineering planning, I'm going to defer to the smart people in the room, which doesn't include me. But what I will tell you is I'll reiterate what Mr. Greenwood said, which is that projects change, and because of projects change, schedules change, whether they're delayed because of, additional steps that were requested or required, or changes in mode might reduce times, or different access to parts of right-of-way that may have changed the time frame. All of those things can impact when projects get done.
I like the first part of your sentence when you said you were going to talk to the smart people in the room on that portion, right? Because I understand you do your part, and I bet you the best person at that part, but I want to speak to the person that can answer that question.
So just for the sake of time and time management in question, I know there are a lot of questions on the committee.
Can I give my numbers then? I'll speak.
Yeah, you're not. You can keep asking questions. I just want to be sensitive to, morning will soon yield to afternoon. I want to make sure that we keep this moving as efficiently as possible. If we have questions that remain unanswered, and I'm happy to talk with all y'all individually, we can hold a work session to go deeper. But we do have business to conduct today beyond reports, and I just want to make sure we get to that in due fashion. So,
and all my
Councilmember
questions
Lewis.
are written. So I ain't coming here shooting from the hip today. I came in here with doing a little research like Mr. Marvin Arrington would have. So when we speaking on Clifton Corridor, what's the projected? So I know I don't know if you have numbers, but I got projected numbers from the Real Answer from MARTA told the city. So what's the projected forecast for daily ridership on Clifton Corridor BRT?
Do we have that on front of us?
Okay.
Yeah, hold on. We'll see if we can get a response here. Thanks, Carrie. Oh, okay. Yeah, so there's a formal stops model program that's being done, so that won't be available for a couple of weeks.
Okay, so we have MARTA told the city 12,000 to 15,000 daily riders. What is the currently data, and then, so numbers, I guess I'm a numbers person. So the current daily ridership of Clifton Corridor bus that runs parallel to proposed Clifton Corridor BRT, the Real Answer says 900 riders per day. If you compare that to Campbellton Road, in which daily they get 4,000 it says that the daily Campbellton Road gets between 3,000 and 4,000 riders. So when we're thinking about the projection, how do we, when we're thinking about the projections, how do we choose the two places? And we're looking at Clifton Corridor getting 900 riders per day, while Campbellton is getting between 4,000 and 8,000 daily riders. How do we choose those two?
We didn't choose between those two. We're advancing both of them.
Okay. So MARTA is forecasting a 100% increase in Campbellton Road, while MARTA is forecasting a 1,300 ridership increase in Clifton. Why is MARTA using different forecasting maths for the projects on the south side?
We're not. We use the same metrics that we do for all of our projects. The fact that some are busier corridors than others doesn't mean that we stop working on the ones that are not as busy. And so I just want to recognize